Hello everybody, I'm Robert Rose. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer with the Content Marketing Institute. I wanted to bring you just a quick video here on something I'm calling the strategic content marketing spectrum. And I know that's a mouthful of words here, but it's something that actually comes up quite a bit in my workshops and in the advisory engagements that we're doing with clients all over the world, which is, what is this content imperative for business? And really answering a few questions such as, okay, tell me what the difference is between content marketing, native advertising, branded content, and just regular old creating content for advertising or marketing purposes. Because I do believe it's a spectrum and we see it all over the place, but we do believe the distinction is also important. I want to also bring up a big hat tip here to Andrew Davis, who's helped a lot with this thinking here, and he's actually got a model that he calls the content quadrant, which I think is just a really great way of looking at this through a different lens. But this is something I've been whiteboarding lately in workshops and with clients, and it seems to be getting a little bit of resonance. So I thought I'd bring this, and it's admittedly a work in progress, to you. So let's go through it here. What we're trying to answer is roughly 5 different questions. Why content at all? What is the measurable goal with content for the business? What approach shall we take in creating it and the kinds of content that we would use? And this is really where the differentiation is. How does the creation of it differ from different departments and different ways that we would create this content? And ultimately, what is the outcome for the business? And so if we look at that first, there's a spectrum here of why content. The first, on the very left-hand side, is we want to create content that has separate value and distinct value from the brand or product that we're bringing into the marketplace, so that people will value this content, they'll share it, we can build subscribership, and ultimately it differentiates us in the marketplace, typically at the top of the funnel. But then if we go all the way over to the right side of this spectrum, we also need to obviously enhance the current and future value of our product or our brand, so that people will buy, they'll buy more, they'll stay loyal, etc. And so if we look at this spectrum, we can start to understand why we would want to create content in the first place. And then we can basically look at 3 different measurable goals that we can create with content. The first is audience or subscribe. Now you might recognize this as the heart of content marketing, but this is our first goal here. And it's really about owned media. Then we would move into the promotion of our product or service, trying to win a customer. This is persuasive content, this is advertising, etc. We are promoting our brand or content in a way that helps us win that customer. And then ultimately, we want to create a customer experience that helps us grow the relationship with that customer over time. We might think of this as customer service. We might think of this as creating product experiences that are driven by content that enhance the value of our product or service, but ultimately it helps us grow the relationship with them over time. And so if we start to plot this then with the different kinds of content that we could take to market, we can start to see a pattern emerge. So on the very left-hand side, where we're focused on audience and subscription, this is about content brands, or content marketing as we often propose it here at Content Marketing Institute. Building content for the purpose of creating an audience that we can monetize in different ways over time. As we move to the right here, as we move and cross over into the promote section, we have native advertising, content that we're creating to pull audience into our owned media properties, but we're paying for the privilege of having that content appear on other publishers' websites. So it is advertising, we are paying for that promotion of content, but we actually will create the content ourselves and hopefully deliver some value with it. Then we have plain advertising, purely and focused on winning the customer. We're persuading that our brand, our solution, our service is the best in the market, and that in ever clever ways, whether we're entertaining or informative or whatever it is, we want to win and drive a decision toward our favor. Then as we move further over and we start creating the customer experience, we want to illuminate maybe shared values that we have, or we want to entertain or inform. So we'll do that in the context of our product or service or brand. And this is where branded content comes in, where we're actually creating longer form versions of advertising, where we're extolling the virtues of our product or brand, but we may do it in storytelling fashion or using long form content to drive that value. And then finally, we've got customer experience-oriented content, where we're creating content-driven experiences, whether mobile, app, digital, offline, physical events, etc., to drive the value of our product or service and enhance that value of that product or service by creating an experience that customers will value in addition to owning that product or service. And so those are the sort of spectrums that we look at when we look at content across that audience, promote, and experience type of spectrum. Now, how does the creation of it differ? Well, if we look at the far left-hand side of this spectrum, it's content as product, where we're creating content products all the way into creating a product and promotion and advertising budget itself for that particular platform. This is truly the idea of brand as media company, where we're creating separate content brands almost as if they were separate products in order to deliver value to our audience and ultimately drive subscribership. And all the way to the right, this is product as content. How would our product or service in the marketplace express itself if it were actually content? And then we can start to plot different kinds of things in here for the outcome of the business. Because on the far left-hand side, when we look at the audience or subscribe, ultimately what we're trying to do is build an audience to optimize business outcomes. We're building an audience to monetize that audience in ever better ways to make sure that we can drive lower costs, we can drive better leads, we can drive better brand awareness, we can ultimately drive down research costs, whatever it is, that audience can be monetized in different ways. Then as we move to the center, we're really trying to create purchase, branding intent, cross-sell, upsell, loyalty. How will we use our advertising to drive more value for the business and promotion of our product or service? All the way to the right-hand side, where we're creating enhancements to our product to create content that drives differentiation in the marketplace. Now, if you're a little bit confused, let me plot some examples in here. And before I do that, I should note that this is really meant to be three-dimensional here, because as you might expect, as we grow over farther to the right to the customer experience, we actually get back into the audience or subscribe mode, where we're trying to build a database of audience members who use our digital or offline content products as a means of understanding their usage of our products and driving better loyalty or better stickiness or whatever it may be. So I can't draw this in three dimensions right now, but you get the idea that it's actually a continuum that builds back upon itself. So now let's look at some actual brands that might be plotted against this. So over on the very left-hand side as content brand, we see some familiar faces here when we're looking at content marketing. So Johnson & Johnson's BabyCenter.com, where they're actually creating a completely separate content brand, and in fact a completely separate company that is owned by Johnson & Johnson to drive value. They sell advertising, they drive subscribership. With 4 million mothers that are subscribed to this, they monetize this in multiple ways, including research, product development, and driving down costs of their advertising and research development as they understand mothers more familiar. Or we have Kraft Food and Family Magazine with 3.5 million opt-in subscribers who pay revenue to get the Food and Family Magazine delivered to their door, and then also pay with real data, rich data, to get access to the online recipes database, where they actually can use that data to monetize different things like getting more effectiveness out of ad media buys, driving down research costs for their brand managers, etc. As we move to the right, we can start to see some branded elements of an owned media property like Schneider Electric's University, their Energy University, where they're sending customers and or prospective customers through Energy University to differentiate themselves in the market and also understand what their customer needs are as it pertains to the products and services that they put into the marketplace. Or Indium's One Engineer to Another, where Indium is driving lead generation using a separate content brand, but really driven out of the brand of the company itself to drive subscribers and engagement with ultimately prospective customers who may ultimately find that Indium is really caring about them from a knowledge standpoint. Now as we move over to native advertising, we see a couple of other things. We can actually see things like Forbes Brand Voice, or maybe the Shell Oil and their Washington Post native advertising that they did, where they actually placed an article within the context of the Washington Post. Or we can see Netflix with their campaign in Orange is the New Black television show, that they actually put an infographic and an article in both the offline and online version of the New York Times. That's pure native advertising meant to promote the various things that they want to promote, in Shell's case brand, and in Netflix cases a product, where they actually are trying to promote that as a traditional advertising, but in context with the publisher. If we move further over to the right and we start looking at brand content, we see familiar examples here like Dove Campaigns for Real Beauty, A wonderful, wonderful piece of branded content that has expressed itself in a number of campaigns, including, of course, the wonderful one where they photoshopped and show the actual model unphotoshopped. A wonderful piece of content that tells a story in an emotional way, but is really an extended commercial and doesn't get beyond enhancing the brand or product that's trying to promote. Or the Johnny Walker Gentleman's Agreement, which is a wonderful piece of content, this one starring Jude Law, which was really an extended commercial that didn't mention the product very much, but of course it was all about promoting Johnny Walker, and it was really the idea of an alternative kind of an ad, a branded content piece. Then as we move further over and we start looking at the customer experience and content driven, we can see things like Nike's GPS app and their multiple mobile applications that are content driven experiences meant to enhance your experience with their shoes or their apparel. Or we see Starwood Hotels with their mobile app on both iPhone, Android, and now the Apple Watch, which drives content into your device as well as the ability to interact with the Starwood Hotels, from everything from unlocking your door with your watch to actually understanding what the latest events are at the hotel that you're going to be staying at and checking in, etc. These are kinds of experiences that are enhancing the product experience and, quite frankly, changing the way that we buy and actually experience a particular product or service. Ultimately, when we get to the end of this, what we're really driving toward is this ultimate business goal. How can we actually use content to drive a business goal? None of these pieces of content and none of these strategies are necessarily more or less effective at their individual purpose than another. Each has their value and each has their place. And we believe that the distinction is actually really important. So I hope this starts to help you. Again, this is a work in progress. This is my whiteboard, so it's not a polished graphic. You can see it's a little complex here, and would love to just continue the conversation, and hopefully you'll get some value out of this, and hopefully it's a bit of an explainer on all of the different kinds of content that we might use for marketing and experience purposes. Thanks so much, and remember out there, it's your story, so tell it well. See you next time.